All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So Darren Mougey just wrapped up his pre-draft press conference, and of course, I'll leave it linked down below in the description box. They live streamed it over on the Jets YouTube channel, but I think so. There was obviously there was a lot of information that was covered in that presser. It's looking like the draft board is done, and Mougey kind of detailed that whole process, right? How they would spend one whole day on one position group. They would basically involve the scouting department and the coaching staff, but specifically the positional coach for that said position, and they'll come up with their individual rankings for all these different guys and essentially build the board out that way. Next day, different positional group. So it's pretty cool to get kind of that behind the scenes look, that behind the curtain kind of glance at how a real life front office in 2025 is doing things, right? And we have that covered, right? We have the board supposedly built. I gotta be honest, I think for me, one of the biggest takeaways from this press conference, it really seemed like Mougey kept coming back to he really likes this roster. He really likes where we're at. And, of course, he likes the NFL draft class. But I really felt like the vibe I got internally was, because you're listening to the questions coming in, you're listening to the responses that he's giving. I think a lot of the answers pointed to BPA. And the Jets won't be reaching on a player or like a position of need. Like, oh man, we desperately need help at wide receiver, right? Fine, we'll just take a wide receiver because we really need one. It really kind of felt to me like there was and Mougey actually talked about the long-term view. You're not making picks in a vacuum. So, that's obviously for better or for worse, but, kind of my thoughts on this draft class. I think it's a solid draft class, really where it shines, round 2, round 3. I think you're going to be getting a similar graded player at the bottom of round 1 that you are at the, maybe back end of round 2. Like all those second round picks are pretty much just kind of your preference. But I do think it's really, really important for this regime. And you can make the same argument for Jacksonville at 5, New Orleans with spot number 9, right? Kellen Moore coming in, brand new coaching staff, brand new schemes. Mike Vrabel with the Patriots. It's really important in year 1 of a new head coach, new GM, to land on players. And of course, it's always important to draft, quality players, contributing starters in every draft, obviously. But in year 1, I mean, let's go back and look at Joe Douglas's first draft, right? Is there even a player still on the roster from that class? The Jets have some serious depth issues on this team. And I think a big part of that is because the Jets have missed a ton on the mid-round picks, right? Those day 2, day 3 selections. It's unfortunate, but that's just where we're at. So if a team wants to have that best player available approach, I'm not going to sit there and argue with it. Especially if it's year 1 for everybody. So again, that was just kind of one of my takeaways from it. It really just kind of feels like Darren Mougey is, he's not going to, handcuff himself to an idea or a positional group or a way of thinking. It's more so I want to enter this draft with flexibility, with the freedom to do what we want and stick to our board. As opposed to, God, we have so much pressure on us, like the Browns at 2, Stefanski, is he going to be sticking around for the long term? New York Giants, Brian Daboll, right? There's tons of different examples with coaching staffs that have pressure on them. Something else to make a note of, Mougey did say that he anticipates picking up the 5th-year options for Garrett Wilson, Jermaine Johnson, and Sauce Gardner. Pretty obvious, but it's good to hear that that's probably going to get done. Someone asked him about the whole Aaron Rodgers thing. Mougey just shut it down immediately. Like, he only wants to talk about players in the Jets. Totally respect it. Aaron Rodgers, to me, at this point, is just irrelevant. In regards to the Jets, if you're the Steelers, I don't know, but if you're the Jets, completely irrelevant. There's really no point for the regime to talk about it any longer. And I think that's why, we heard the answer from Mougey. So, great job there. And then last but not least, Rick Spielman came up. Someone had a great question about Rick Spielman, and Mougey kind of detailed what he's meant to the Jets so far, basically how he's in all these different meetings, he's bouncing around ideas, he's a veteran mind. And Mougey also mentioned how he's looked across the league, the landscape of football, and has seen former GMs have success or be really, really big contributors to their new teams. And he wanted to kind of get in on that. And so when it came to Rick Spielman, he had supposedly other job opportunities, and Mougey had to convince him and really work to get him to, sign on with the New York Jets in this style of senior advisor type of role. So, I mean, that to me, I feel like is kind of a universal benefit for this Jets team. Like, I don't feel like adding experience, adding someone who's done the job before, adding someone who's been in tons of different drafts, someone who's drafted players that worked out. He's been someone who's drafted players that haven't worked out, drafted some draft busts, if you will. So he's seen it, he's done it. And I think just having that voice, having that sounding board, if you will, is going to be very, very important for, of course, a first-year general manager. So, outside of that, there was, of course, a lot of, kind of just the typical coach speak, GM speak, if you will. But, I mean, can you blame him? We're 3 days out from the NFL draft. Who's going to sit up there and just, dish out all the details, with the team's plans at spot number 7 and, in the preceding rounds. But anyway, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching. Man, the draft is so close. I'm fascinated by it, right? We have all these new rumors coming out. And again, I think a lot of the answers, for me at least, right, my takeaway, we're going to approach this draft with freedom. We're going to have that long-term approach, and we're not going to reach on a player. If we don't like a player at that spot, right, at where we're drafting, we're not going to force it. We're going to take a player that's reflective or has a reflective grade of where we're currently picking at. So anyway, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. And as always, go Jets.